From One of One Production Studio, located in Fort Lee, New Jersey, this is The Art of Music Tech. And now, here's your host, Fela and Dennis.
Let's go, and welcome to the Art of Music Tech podcast. Today, we have Tiffany Monique.
Yeah. Thank you.
The lead backing vocalist for the Queen Bee, Beyoncé, of the last 13 years, almost in March.
Yep. March,
Yes.
13 years. Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Now, 13 years, you've been through it.
Yes.
That's quite a few albums. That's not just like, I did the first two. And
Right.
Yeah. Like,
That's
yeah. Okay. But I want to start from the beginning.
Okay.
Where are you from?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville.
Yes. I was born in Nashville, Tennessee.
All right.
Yep,
Fellow
and-
Southerner.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So I was in Nashville, Tennessee and moved north really young when I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
Yep. And I've been pretty much based in Newark, New Jersey since then.
Jersey girl, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Your parents into music?
Yes, both. My mom was she studied classical music. My dad was definitely more so, and he was more of like a poet. At the time, neither of them still do it now. But
But you do, though.
yes.
Uh-huh.
But very musical family. My grandparents, my aunt used to sing background for Shaka Khan.
Oh,
yeah,
That's
Very, very musical family.
Wow. Okay. So you were into the music thing from Nashville into
Yes.
Newark. And so how was that in church or?
Yeah, it started in church. From what I was told, I don't remember this, but from what I was told, I started singing at 3 in church.
Okay.
Soon and very soon in church. And then supposedly, like, I made this grand gesture. I had this, I do vaguely remember. I had a strawberry shortcake record player. And I had a little microphone. And supposedly one day I just brought it to church, plugged it and turned it on, I guess, and started playing my strawberry shortcake music and said, I'm going to be a star. That part I don't remember. But everyone's told me that story. So
I guess it wasn't true. No,
Right. So supposedly
Wow.
it started then. And then growing up was particularly once I moved north, I was heavily involved in church. I was one of those Sunday through Sunday church people.
Oh,
So I was in
okay.
every auxiliary and ministry, and I was
Children's
in the
choir.
all of that prayer band, willing workers, usher board, everything. But always kind of the heart of it was in the choir. I became a leader in the choir relatively young. Like I was probably 12 when I became like one of the one of the leads of the children's choir, and I started a choir at my high school when I got to school because I was like, I want to sing and they don't have anything to do, so can I start one? And started that. I became as I got older, I became the minister of music at my church.
Oh.
So it very much church training, even I would say. Because I didn't have any formal musical training until I was 18 and went to college.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was all church.
Oh,
Did you play
okay.
any instruments?
Nope.
though? Oh,
Nope.
okay.
Not until
Okay.
Yeah, not until I went to college. When I graduated from high school, I went to visit Morgan State University. And I remember for some reason, I don't know whether he had heard of me, but I had this I don't know, stigma. I can't think of a better word, but I was known for having a big mouth. Like that was literally one of my nicknames, Big Mouth. So he's passed now, but Dr. Carter, who was the head of the music department at Morgan State University, sent me to the middle of the football field and told me to sing. And I'm like, why is he sending me? I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I sang and all of that, and a lot of the people that were in the choir that were already going there were like cheering for me and all of that. And right after that, he offered me a full scholarship. So I went to Morgan State University on a full music scholarship, knew absolutely nothing about
music theory,
not
like the
technical.
whole,
No, it was so embarrassing that first year.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, I had raw talent.
Yeah.
And pretty much all of the people that I went to school, in college with, all the people I went to school with were classically trained. So I remember going into that first rehearsal and, they whipped out their black books and they were reading and I'm like, what is that? Like, so that was a rough start.
Yes.
But ultimately I learned what I need to learn. And, by the time I was a sophomore, I was able to sight read, never as good as they did, still can't as good as they did, but definitely enough to understand, and I learned more about theory and I did vocal training. And then I was able to kind of tie in my church experience with training. And found a balance. So,
yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't find that balance.
Right, and you have to.
You have to know the theory.
Yes,
with singing.
You have to.
With
or
anything,
you won't be singing for long.
Exactly.
You won't sing long. Yeah. You'll shoot everything.
As an engineer, I hear it. I know when you study. I know when you did. I know when it's just like, oh yeah, she's just by her ear, or she's like, she can just pick up and be like, okay, G flat, okay, yeah,
okay, right, yeah. There's definitely a balance on both sides.
Yes,
because I've definitely found, even when, like for example, when I was younger, even before college, I can't say I really had any interest in being a professional singer.
Oh, what did you want to do?
When did you decide?
Hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh. Nice.
Yep. I wanted to be a cosmetologist. Like to the point, the day that I left for college, that's a story. So I received a full music scholarship, but at the time it didn't include room and board.
Oh.
So they were looking for room and board and all of the dorms were occupied. So there was no place for me to stay. So I'm like, oh well, sorry.
Didn't work out.
Yeah, oh well. And so I applied for, I think it was Empire Beauty School or something like. I applied to that and got accepted and I was so excited.
Same year?
Yes. I was like, yes, I'm going. I was, I'm fresh out of high school or whatever, 18. I was like, oh, I'm going to do hair and I'm going to open my own salon. And I was so ready. And one night at about 10:30 at night, Dr. Carter called my mom. And he said, he called, I answered the phone. And he said, because my maiden name is Marshall. So he was like, Tiffany Marshall, why weren't you at rehearsal today? And I'm like, oh, Dr. Carter, I'm not in Baltimore. I'm home. And he was like, why are you home? And I was like, oh, well, they didn't have room and board. So I can't come. I don't have any place to stay. So, and he said, let me talk to your mom. And we had done due diligence to check around and see if we could get rooms. There were no rooms.
Nothing
so I'm
happened.
like, there's
Okay.
Nothing there. So I felt great. So gave my mom a
Moving on.
Got another career already.
I got something else popping.
So my he got on the phone with my mom and they talked for a while. And then the next thing I remember, she came into my room and said, you need to gather a few things. You're leaving on a train in the morning to go to Baltimore.
A little unexpected.
Oh, my goodness. So literally by about 6:30 the next morning, I was on a train heading to Baltimore. And then was there in time for choir rehearsal the next day. Yeah. I was miserable. And they treated me so well because even when I got down there, because he recognized that it was a short turnaround time. So I didn't really have time to pack things. Like I hadn't gone shopping for college and things like that. So even when I got down there, he got me a dorm, or got me a room in a dorm.
Oh, he found the room. He found the room. Okay.
You see? It was meant to be. He found, had a room. And even had a budget allocated. He was like, go to, I can't even remember what the store was, like Rite Aid or something. But he was like, go get the things you need. You had a clothing budget. Go get about a week or two of clothes. And when you have time, you can go back home. And so I did. I went down there and he literally helped me for the first 2 weeks. And then I think about 2 weeks later, I went home and formally packed and came back. In hindsight, the best decision ever, but I can still feel how I felt in that moment, and it was not a happy
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So you do the full 4 years and you really soak it up and you enjoy the college life with singing and
oh God, I love college. So I started off as a music education major. Because I knew that at Morgan, they pretty much have a classical program. At the time, they didn't really have like a jazz program. And I knew that the music I intended to do, if anything, would be closer to jazz than classical. So because of that, I was like, I don't know if I want music performance as a major. So I did music education. My mom is an educator. So I'm like, okay, I can teach. If all else fails, I can teach. Still can't say I was looking for a record deal or anything in mainstream. And then I was a music education major for 2 years. And then my sophomore year, second semester of my sophomore year, I got sick and had to have surgery. So I had to come home and miss that semester. Yeah. When I came back and kind of just looked over the credits and how much more I had left, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to be, because I at the time, and I can't believe that because I so love Baltimore now, but at the time, I just hated being down there. I just wanted to be with my mom. So, and I'm an only child, so I was like, I want to be with my mom, so I was just in such a rush to get back to New Jersey. So I'm like, I need to change my major. So I changed my major. And then I went to speech pathology because that was something I was also interested in. Briefly speech pathology, and then I'm like, no, I don't want to do that either. Then I did telecommunications, and I'm like, oh, that's not direct enough. And so finally, I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in journalism.
Oh, okay.
So my degree is in journalism, although, I'm still ended up singing.
Okay. All right. So you get out of school.
Yes.
Now that first year is always that I don't care who you are.
Oh goodness. And then of course I ended up, when I got out of school, actually I had a hiccup there. So I had a boyfriend at the time, and a long time boyfriend, like high school sweetheart. And so, by the time I got to my senior year, we were serious for what we thought was serious. Yeah. So he proposed. I accepted. And then I planned my wedding for July of 2000. I was still in school. So my last semester at Morgan, I had 21 credits because I was trying to hurry up and get out of there. I was working full time because I was trying to save up money for this wedding, and I was planning a wedding.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. So I failed most of those classes. I did have my wedding though. So I got married in July of 2000, and then I was faced with the decision: do I return to Baltimore I was 10 credits shy of graduating? So I was like, okay, do I return to Baltimore and finish that up, or do I transfer? And it's hilarious now because based upon what I do for a living, being away from home is what I do. But at the time, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Right. So I ended up transferring to William Patterson University
to here
in New Jersey, because I had to be by my then husband and my mama. So I transferred to William Patterson, and thankfully they accepted most of my credits.
Nice.
So I still had to do more time than I would have had to do at Morgan, but I did about 3 semesters at William Patterson, and then that's where I finally got my degree. And I got my degree in 2003. Once I got my degree, I'm like, okay, now what do I do? So I worked as an executive assistant and assistant grant writer at New Jersey Institute of Technology. And did that for about a year. It was miserable. And then my then husband said, take a year off and kind of see what you want to do. So I'm like, okay. So I took a year off, and I was working with a producer, Bernard Bell, who is the brother of Regina Bell. Yeah. So I was working with him, and we did a whole bunch of songs, and I kind of got a couple of placements on different projects. So nice. I really kind of got a bit more knowledge about the music industry then.
It gave you the bug? to want to do more of it?
Well, no, believe it or not,
toe in it?
Right. Believe it or not, I do need to backtrack briefly. While I was in college in Morgan in 1998, one of the girls in the choir, my friend Rochelle, asked if I was interested in joining a group. So I'm like, oh, sure, whatever, I'll sing. That's what we do in school, so let's do it here. So I joined the group. She had another friend that joined the group, and our name was On Point. Oh. So we were a group, and she actually had connections with the manager. His name was Jose Clowney. He's passed since then. But so Jose was trying to help her and us as members of this group get a record deal. So we went to Jive. We went to, I think we did go to Jive. J Records. We went to Island Black Music, Bad Boy. We were just going everywhere. Trying to get placed, which was... wow. So it was interesting. But definitely teachable moments. I remember when we went to J Records at the time, I knew nothing about branding. I went with this old beat up shirt and some jeans, and my hair was a mess, and I didn't know anything about branding. And I remember we actually got a response from Clive Davis, and he essentially said that the group was very talented. He thought that, and I wasn't the lead vocalist, but for some reason I sang most of the leads. There wasn't really a lead, but I was kind of pushed to the front for a lot of the songs. So he had referred to me in that letter as the lead vocalist. And he said, your lead singer sounds great, but she can't compete with the divas on our roster. And I'm like, well, how is that? And then I'm looked at the divas on his roster, and I'm like, Faith Evans, she's from Newark. I love her. I study her. So I was so heartbroken. In hindsight, it was the brand. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. But he comes from Whitney Houston. Almost that Motown, everybody has to be in a gown type.
Yeah, and that was not me. Yeah. That was not me. Oh, no. There was nothing like me at the time.
Yeah, got you.
We ultimately ended up landing an imprint deal with a producer by the name of Daryl Pearson, and he was affiliated with MCA Records. So we ended up getting an imprint deal with MCA Records through his label and his imprint label. And actually did a couple of placements. We worked on a couple of songs with Drew Hill. We were actually featured on a remix of a song called Fee Fi Fo Fum by Casey and JoJo. We worked with Maya. So that's really where I got my bug. But then there were some management issues and some production issues that kind of just over time made it super complicated. Yeah. And groups are complicated.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
Opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it didn't last. We were probably assembled as a group for a total of 2 years. And then we kind of just went our separate ways. But that's when I initially got the bug. I definitely had that reinforced working with Bernard Bell, because then it was kind of just me. I was focused as a solo artist. At the time, I was focused on gospel music. So I was kind of going down that path, but some of the experience that I got was both gospel and secular. And so it definitely made me say, hey, I might be interested in doing this. And so I started attending a place called the Village Underground in New York. I went to the Village Underground like it was a job.
That's a workout gym right there. That's if you a singer in New York City. You gotta put, I'm an engineer and I know.
Right.
That's just the place you gotta go.
Right.
Period.
Right. So I'll say that's where that real, okay, no, I have to do this.
Grind.
At the Village Underground. That's where it
happened. Yeah. Goodness, there's so many people that just roll through there. When Prince was alive, he would just roll through. Yes. That place is legendary.
Yes.
It's super legendary.
Absolutely.
So so you got the bug now.
Yes.
So where are we going with the bug? And it's kind of falling apart.
Right. right.
You're on a solo bug, a solo trip now.
So while I was at attending the Village Underground, I was also working as a was a clinical trial associate for Novartis Pharmaceutical Corporation. Yeah. Yeah, just nothing about music, right?
9 to 5.
9 to 5.
Strict 9 to 5.
Yes,
Strict 9 to 5. I was miserable. I used to sit in my cubicle and cry every day. Like, what am I doing? And especially because then on Sundays I'm going to the underground and I'm singing this.
Having
I'm like,
fun.
No, yes. And I'm singing. And
people high-fiving. You're like, oh, you getting
like,
the vibe. It's New York.
Right.
Oh, please.
And then I got Monday morning, I'm sitting there and I'm on the phone. I mean, God bless what they do, but I'm talking about clinical trials and I'm like, this doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had a talk with, of course, at the Village Underground, you meet a lot of people. So there were other singers there. Ron Grant, who, really got, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Yes. Yeah. He definitely kind of took me under his wing and said, like, you can do this as a career. And Melanie Daniels took me she really took me under her wing. It was like, you can do this. And I remember one time she asked me, would you think about doing background singing? And I'm like, never thought of it, but okay, So she said, okay, if something comes up, I'm going to plug you for it. And I'm like, okay. So sure enough, shortly thereafter, there was a Christmas gig with Mariah Carey on BET. And Melanie called me. She just needed kind of like a small choir behind her for this particular performance. So Melanie called and asked if I was available and interested. I'm like, sure. I took the day off of work, went and, did that gig. And I will never forget this. While we were there, we were part of a choir. So you just there, you do your quick little gig and then you go back home. And I always remember when I was walking into the studio where they were filming they were taping the show, Melanie and two other singers were there, and they had these huge suitcases. And I remember looking like, what are they doing with these suitcases? Like, they were huge. And then they were talking, and it's like, yeah, blah, blah, don't forget your passport. And, it was just all of this banter behind me. And I'm like, wow, what are they doing? Right. I'm like, what are they doing? And then sure enough, the more I was there, they were literally leaving that gig to go to the airport to leave for tour. And so that was kind of my first, when I was singing with the choir, we definitely supported other singers. Like we sang behind Mariah Carey and things like that. And I had, not Mariah Carey, I'm sorry, Yolanda Adams and other singers. Yeah. But because it was a part of this massive choir, it didn't feel like this particular moment felt. So I just remember seeing them with these suitcases and talking about passports and what they're going to do in London and all of this. And I'm like, I wish I could do that. Like, that sounds fun. And, like I said, I did the gig. And then the next day I was back in my cubicle. And I was thinking about the fact that they were probably in London, and
doing their thing.
Yes.
Oh yes, the London. I know that like when you ain't been there yet. It's London and Paris. When you hear people in New York say that and you ain't been there yet, you just like, oh
so,
God.
I will say that moment. That's when I'm like, oh no, I want to do
that.
This.
Okay,
yeah. That was the defining. That was the defining moment. And then after that, Melanie would definitely refer me for things, here and there. So I had the opportunity to sing through Melanie with Mariah Carey, Christina Aguilera. I did, I did a Stevie Wonder.
What?
Like a whole bunch of, and the thing that I love, the groups that I was singing with kept getting smaller and smaller. So like the first gig was like 8 singers, then it was like 5, then it was like 3, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm like where Melanie was now, like just meaning you're the core singer. So, I started doing that, but I was still working 9 to 5.
Job.
I was taking
so you take a day off.
I'm taking my day off to do that. Right. And then in 2004, my then husband and I found out I was pregnant with my son. And so I'm like, well, that was fun. Because I was I grew up in a very traditional family. I had very traditional values. So it's like, oh, you're a mom? Well, you can't chase. You can't
Your
chase
dreams.
these pipe dreams.
Yeah.
You got to buckle down and be a good mom. So in 2004, the end of 2004, when I found out I was pregnant with my son, I kind of threw music out. I'm like, it's not possible. Just sit here and get this good pension at Novartis and, just do that. So I had my son and played, good old mom for 2 years in the traditional sense, but still sitting in that cubicle every day. Once I got off of maternity leave and went back to work, I'm like, this sucks. This really sucks.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, that was burning, within me. And I knew that I wanted to break out. And then finally in 2007, I got the opportunity to break out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were a 2 or 3-year-old.
He was getting ready to turn 2.
And an opportunity.
An opportunity.
Of a lifetime.
Yes.
What we all want.
Yes.
That, a call or a friend of a friend or how.
Lottery.
Tell us this story.
So that particular week, I had applied for this director position with within the pharmaceutical industry, because I'm like, hey, I'm a mom and I gotta move up. So let me try to, move up the ladder. So I had this job and I had been interviewing and they had narrowed it down to myself and another candidate. And so I went back for like my 3rd interview. And then on this particular morning, the woman called me and she said, we loved you and you were so charismatic and all of this other stuff. But the other candidate had a master's degree. And so she was like, the company decided to go with him. I was devastated because at that particular point, I did feel like, okay, I went to school. I have my degree. I know I can be doing more than I'm doing right here, but nobody will give me a chance to, And so I was so heartbroken and I just felt really defeated that day. So went through the rest of my day. And then I remember I'm getting ready to leave work and go to choir rehearsal. So as soon as I get to my car, I look at my phone and there is a text message from Melanie Daniels. So she says, hey, Tiff, Kim Burse is trying to get in touch with you. Kim is the music director for...
Shout out to Kim. She's
Kim
been
Burse.
on the show.
Yeah.
she's a friend of the show. Yes.
Yes.
She's given a lot of those calls.
Oh,
shout out to Kim.
My goodness. I love Kim. That's the secret weapon right there.
Secret weapon.
Yes. So she said, Kim Burse is trying to get in contact with you. So I'm like, okay.
Did you know who Kim Burse was at that point?
Only because the year prior, when I was pregnant with my son, maybe a year and a half prior, when I was pregnant with my son, Melanie called me because there was like a small little gig that Kim was trying to assemble background singers for. Okay. And Melanie referred me to it to go. I didn't get the message till late. So I left work and was like, I want to go. I want to do this. Because she said it was for Beyonce. And at the time, Beyonce wasn't who she is now.
That was like first album.
Yeah. But it was like, okay, but she's a singer and this is a check.
Crazy in love with
she was definitely impressive. So, and she had been with Destiny's Child. So you definitely knew who she was. And so I left work and went to this audition at about 8.5 months pregnant. And I went wobbling in there. And I always remember I walked in the door and Kim looked at me like, what in the world? She looked at me like, what in the world is... And so she was like, okay, can you sing something? So... so I forgot what the song was, but I sang something for her. And then she said, okay. She was like, well, you can sing. She was like, I don't think you're fit for this, though. She was like, but I'll take your number and I'll keep you in mind for future work. And I remember people say that in this industry all
and never call back.
Time.
Oh, boy.
And never call back.
Never call back.
So when she said, I'll take your number and I'll call you back, I remember it was, the smallest yellow Post-its. It was the real small ones. I remember. And I'm like, she is not going to call me back. But I'm like, okay, thank you. And she wrote my name and my phone number down. Whatever. But now fast forward, here we are a year and a half later, and Kim Burse is looking for me by way of Melanie Daniels. So I'm on my way to choir rehearsal. I call Kim. And when I call Kim, Kim is like, hey, please tell me you're not on tour or anything right now. And I'm like, no. And she said, okay. She said, can you sing full tone soprano, like a full belt soprano? And in my head, I'm like, no, because I had just had my son, and I was one of those people, when I was pregnant with my son, I couldn't sing anything.
Oh, the diaphragm.
Yes, it was shot. My voice was horrible when I was, and so I was slowly building it back. Yeah. So I was very much an alto, very much. But she was like, can you sing full tone, full belt soprano? I'm like, yeah.
You have to figure out later.
Right.
I know, right?
And so she said, okay, I need you to meet with the Beyonce's two other singers, Chrissy and Montina, tonight in Brooklyn. And I'm like, huh? And I'm like, oh, okay. And so she sent me the information, and she was like, we're in rehearsals now, so you probably wouldn't be able to meet with them till about 11:30 at night. Now, keep in mind, I am like in soccer mom mode.
Corporate.
So
I'm
9 to 5.
I'm in second realm sleep at 11 o'clock.
So she says that, she gives me all this information. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm still nervous. I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. 11:30, I'm supposed to be asleep. I got to put Jordan to bed. So I'm at choir rehearsal, and I remember running it past a couple of my musician friends there. And they're like, are you crazy? You better go over there. So I ended up leaving rehearsal early because I think my then husband had gotten my son at the time. And so I left choir rehearsal and went to meet with the other two singers. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is an audition for me to, see if I can get this.
Hey.
Yeah, because I knew this was going to be a tour. So I went there, I met with them, and I remember when I walked into the room, they took this stack of papers and they just sat in the front. They were like, here's the songs, girl, and they were like, do you know? And I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm sorry, B, but I didn't really listen to her at the time. So I knew Crazy in Love.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh God, I felt like I did when I was in college.
Yeah, that first year. I'm like,
right. I'm like,
okay.
So I remember going through Crazy in Love with them. And then it was another song that they were basically trying to teach me. They were, teaching me the song, and I was, going through it. And then I'm sitting up there, like, trying to do, so far the songs weren't too high, so I could fake my soprano. So they said, oh, okay, cool. Girl, it was fun. You so cool. We love you and all of this. And so then when I left there, as I'm leaving, going back home, I get a call from Kim Burse. And she's like, okay, so rehearsal's tomorrow at 12. And B will probably be there around 5, so that'll give you time to kind of get more acclimated, get to know the band, and all of this. So in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is an intense audition. Like, okay, I'm like, okay. So then I was like, I said, well, I actually work, so I'll see if they'll let me take off or whatever. And so Kim's like,
what?
So at the time, she didn't say anything.
You do what? Hold on. What?
Right.
Yeah.
So long story short, she, the next morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, I really need to, because I need to leave early because, again, I'm corporate. So I'm like, okay, if I need to leave at 12, I need to get to work at like 5 so I can get some work done. So I went into work super early. I got work done so that I could show up at 12. So I show up at 12. Kim wasn't there yet. And I remember walking in the building and the band was up there. And I just remember they were in a huddle, kind of like having a team meeting. And it was like, yeah, so, when you hit the C sharp and then blah, 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 and then I'm going to do A flat. And then, and I'm like.
Yeah.
Now, I knew what they were talking about, but I didn't know what they were talking about.
The context.
I'm like, this is Crazy in Love. Are we really going this deep for this? Like, And so I saw that and I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. This is above my grade. I'm just good old church singer. I can do a little bit of sight reading here and there, but that's about it. So I went there with the intention of turning it down, saying like, sorry, this just isn't a fit. My son is only 1. Can't do it. Kim wasn't there. So from 12 to 5, I'm in rehearsals with them. And I'm like, and then finally, as I got more comfortable with the other singers, I'm like, I have to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm going to get the gig or whatever. And they were like, get the gig? You got the gig. And I'm like, what do you mean I got the gig? And they were like, this wasn't no audition. You were hired last night. We just tried to teach you some of the songs for the day. And I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, well, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm going to tell, thank you, really. But I have a son. He's 1. I'm married. I got a job.
That's some pension going on. I'm invested. Hey, they put me in 50% now.
Do you know we get discounts with GMC trucks? Like, I'm like,
corporate discounts, baby.
Yes.
Give me an envoy. You're going to give me a truck this year.
Right.
And you talking about a show up,
what? No,
a tour.
No,
and
right.
You're like, and you can't even imagine, like,
I can't even wrap my mind around that. And then I always remember they were sitting there, and then the other 2 singers were like, we're moms too. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah. And at the time, my team was like, my son is 7. And Chrissy was like, my daughter's 12. And I'm like, how do y'all do this? And they were like, your family helps you out. Sometimes you can bring them out and we make it work. And so then that was a little comforting for me. But then I'm still like, yeah, but your kids are still older. And then I remember during lunch, I started talking to Caddy, who was one of the saxophone players, now one of my best friends. But and Caddy's son was 6 months old. So I talked to her, and when I saw she was doing it, I'm like,
no more excuses.
Right. So I remember coming home and talking to my mom, and I'm like, Mommy, I don't know what to do. And I was talking to my now ex-husband, but I was talking to him, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he said, look, if you don't go for this, don't mention nothing about singing or the music.
Never again.
Don't even bring it up.
Agreed.
Just settle in your corporate life and don't mention it. He was like, but if you want to chase your dream, this is how it happens. Like, this is what. And that pep talk was really what finally led me to say, you know what? I'll do it. So that's essentially how I started with B.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to your corporate job next morning?
I did.
You did? You still did?
Wait a minute.
Okay,
so,
yeah. Now, how does...
What was the transition?
Yeah, what was that
It wasn't
transition?
smooth, right?
So later that afternoon when Kim finally came in, and I had accepted the fact that I wasn't going to quit, I wasn't going to turn it down, because I was fully prepared to turn it down when she got there. It was God that made her not come in then.
That earlier.
And I got to talk to all of those other people to change my mind. When she finally came in, I had wrapped my mind around, wow, I'm going to do this. But I'm like, okay, Kim, so come on, last corporate banter. I'm like, so I have to give 2 weeks. So I can put in my letter today, and I'm like, I can put in my letter today, and then, in 2 weeks, I'll be ready for, to come. And then I'm like, but I get off of work, I can get off early. I can go in a little earlier, get off earlier, so I could probably be here by 3. Kim was like, rehearsals tomorrow at 12. You'll be here at 12. And I'm like, and when she said that, I'm like, oh, okay. So then finally, I'm like, I don't know what to do. So for 4 days, I went into work at 5 a.m. so that I could get off at, I was supposed to get off at 12, but I was sneaking out at 11. But I went in because I just felt, and I mean, I'm still, to a degree, I'm still like that this day. One thing I pride myself in being is dependable. So if you expect me to be something, I'm going to do everything in my power to be that, or to at least give you enough time to adjust to me not being able to fulfill that. So I couldn't just walk away like just cold from the job. So I was going in early, like trying to finish up. And then I'm like, I'm working clinical trial. Like, these are people's lives I'm dealing with. So, so I went in, I tried to process as much as I could. But after that first rehearsal, I did give I wrote my letter of resignation to give to my manager. But I was embarrassed to tell him why I was quitting, because I thought it was kind of irresponsible and frivolous. I'm like, you're a mom now. You can't take these risks. So I just said, a family issue has come up. I can't do this anymore. Like, I literally found this letter last week. And I found the resignation letter last week. And I did not allude in any way, like, hey, I'm about to be on tour and live my dream. And no, I was like, family issues come up. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to quit. And it's going to have to kind of be immediate. I did that 5 to 11 for 3 days. And then I'm doing 5 to 11, rushing over to Brooklyn for rehearsing in Brooklyn from 12 to 11 at night. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. So I did it for 3 days. And then I just said, I literally, the last day, like, I didn't even collect my things because I had intentions of going in another morning. I called one of my friends at work. I was like, girl, pack that stuff up. I can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah. And I got lectured by them. This is irresponsible. You're about to be was it tenured? I don't know what it was, but like I was on the verge of like I was nearing 5 years, and 5 years is like when the floodgates open and you can get a great pension and all of it. And I was right on the verge. And I remember one of my friends was there like, this is irresponsible. What are you doing? And what do you plan on doing when this tour is over? And all of this, and I in my head I was thinking the same thing, but then something else was telling me you gotta go. Yeah,
the reality.
And I'm so glad I did.
I mean, you would have jumped off the bridge after seeing how big. You would have been like, ah! Like if you would have saw how big she got, like you were like, what did I do?
I would have been sick.
You would have been so sick.
No good. No, that was the best decision ever. And that was wow. And it was like, what better way to teach my son how to go for his than to go for mine?
Right. So your mama went
yes,
for it.
Yep.
No excuses.
No excuses. Yep. Wow. And that's indirectly how the group that I sang with became known as the Mamas, because we were.
Oh, okay. Because everybody's a mama.
We were all mamas. Yep. That's how we became the
perfect
mamas.
sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Fantastic. So that first time of going out on the road, how was that? Was that just like, bus tours and learning that whole world? And
it was it's funny because a lot of them had a nickname for me. They called me the school teacher because, again, I was very corporate. So I came to rehearsals and I'm on tour with my dress slacks with the pleats and
got the khakis on, some loafers, button. You're like straight.
I was such a square. Wow. I was such a oh my God, I was such a square. Okay. So that it was
an adjustment for anybody to get used to that way of life.
And I was such a, which some of my friends will be like, see, that was the turn, because I was such a church girl. So that was a whole new world. Because it was like, and I will see the thing that I do know, and the reason why I knew that particular role was divinely inspired, I had heard all of these horror stories about the music industry and musicians and it's drugs and alcohol and sex and lies and all of this other stuff. And I don't know whether it was because she was managed by her father. I don't know. But it was such a wholesome camp. So it's not like I got on the road and it was just lines of cocaine. You know what I mean? Like it was
on the 2 Live crew.
It wasn't anything like that. But it was just so different from I hadn't experienced anything like that.
So what album was this?
This was B-Day. B-Day.
B-Day. So
so this was Deja Vu. This was what else was on this that album? Because all of them I just mesh them together now. Yeah, but definitely like Deja Vu was on that album. No, Halo wasn't on that album. Halo was on the following album. But it was right before. I confess, when I think about Beyonce's career, I think about before Single Ladies and after Single Ladies. Because I feel like once Single Ladies came out, she just went on a different...
Oh, yeah. That video to me was like
somewhere.
I was like, oh yeah, Beyonce. And then when I saw that video, I was like,
oh yeah, it was just different. So back then we were singing "Dangerously in Love."
That's another album.
Yeah,
that's one. So okay, this is right before. This is one of the biggest in the pop world still,
but
though,
very much like Rihanna was her peer, and like Carrie Hilson was a peer, and you know what I mean. So she wasn't the megawatt star like she even became after Single Ladies. She wasn't, and so when we went on the tour, like we were doing arenas, and it was definitely like the thing that was different about her, and I only know that it's different now after talking with other background vocalists and having known their experiences.
Yeah.
One of the first things she did was when we started tour, we got media training, and we got had like a makeup artist come in and teach us how to do our makeup. And that was such a lesson for me, because it was almost like I had this vision of, okay, I'm going to be sitting down and someone's going to be painting this nail and this one while someone else is doing my hair, and I'm just going to be sitting back like that. And it was like the lesson that I got from that is, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime.
Indeed.
And that's kind of how she carries herself as a businesswoman about her career. And that's kind of how she groomed us in that first tour. So it was like, no, we didn't necessarily have the stereotypical glitz and glamour, but we were learning the business. I didn't know that's what we were learning at the time, but we were learning the business and kind of learning how to take care of ourselves through that process. So it was definitely a learning.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a learning experience, that first tour. And then, like I said, you're on the tour buses and you're spending the night in a bunk. That I had to get used to that. And like cooking your meals in a little,
little crock pot or something.
Yeah. That was a learning experience. Probably the hardest adjustment was not being with my son. Because it's like he was one, so he was still doing a whole lot of things for the first time. And I was missing that. And definitely like my now ex-husband and son, they would come out, but there was nothing like being home with him. So the first tour was a little rough in that regard.
How long was the first tour?
Let's see, I got hired March 17th and we came home in December.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's you don't even hear.
8 months.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And was that America or is that Europe? What was that like? Different continents?
Everywhere.
I'm sure.
We hit all. The only one we didn't hit that tour was South America.
Wow.
We hit every other one. So we were just everywhere. Like I remember, we were in Nagoya, Japan. There was an earthquake while we were there. Like it was just overload of experiences, But in that process, I'm like, I'm away from my son, and I want to show him this, and not that he would have cared then. But I wanted, and they definitely came out and visited me. Like one time when we were in Portugal, they came out, so they came to visit. But even with all of that, even with the adjustment, I still knew I had made the right decision.
Yeah.
But like I absolutely knew. I just kind of took it as par for the course. I knew like, okay, this is what you got to learn how to juggle, But the first tour, it was cool. I definitely had my moments of, too much drinking. Yeah.
I mean, that's just around.
I didn't come home the church girl I left. I put it that way. But it did.
Made few adjustments.
Yeah. I loosened up. I wasn't, putting creases in my pants anymore. Yeah.
So you finish one tour in 8 months. How do you readjust coming back home? That's weird. Because I mean, rough. Even for me, when I after a long, a month long, I'm like, oof, what is this place?
Right.
Yeah, like 8 months.
Yeah. So
your kid has gotten bigger. You're like, what happened? Who are you?
Right. Oh God, I remember when I came home in JFK Airport, and I came home, and I remember walking and seeing him, and I mean, he was, walking and stuff, but he had grown and his face had filled out, and I'm like, oh, I missed it. And then the first adjustment, honestly, that I wasn't prepared for was the financial adjustment. Because this was before, not to date myself, but this was before you truly relied on online for banking, like looking at online banking like that. So it just went in the account, you kind of swiped your card and you just had fun. And then I remember coming home and trying to figure it out. And by then, definitely my ex-husband and I had kind of made the decision that, okay, you know what? We'd be better off kind of breaking this off and maintaining a friendship and a cool co-parenting relationship than trying to force this to be, because we were having problems before I left for tour, and being away on tour just that just kind of clarified it. We're still like super close friends now, but that's kind of when we made that decision. So I had that adjustment to deal with, feeling like I needed to get to know my son again, which hurt. That hurt. And then the finances, because I didn't save.
Yeah.
So my first tour, I literally came home and got on welfare after a couple of months because I had no money. And then I'm like, okay, do I go back to corporate? How do I go back to corporate? They all just saw me on stage with Beyonce, and then I'm gonna come. Like it was, I'll call it what it was. It was ego. Like my ego was like, I can't do that. I'd rather suffer. And so I did. I did, and probably for a period of, because we were probably off for about 9 months of nothing. And then in 2000, that was just a horrible year for me anyway, because then 3 months after I got home, my grandfather died. 2 weeks after that, one of my aunts died. 2 weeks after that, one of my uncles died. Like, it was just like, I have no money. I lost my marriage. I don't know my son anymore. And all of these people are, like, it was a horrible year, for me. And I had to reassess, because again, and I'm going based on what I know, and what I knew was I didn't have these problems when I was in corporate. My money was stable. I lived in my means. I knew what it was. I had insurance. I had,
That's what you get with 9 to 5.
Right.
Security.
Yeah, security. Yeah.
So
but
that
not
was
the passion,
Not the passion.
Zero passion.
Not the passion. And so that 2008 was, my first year home from after my first tour. And it was an adjustment where I had to kind of, number one, reassess what I wanted, accept that there were going to be some sacrifices that had to be made if I wanted to continue to pursue what I wanted. And I had to downsize to live within my means so I could, because the way you live when you know a check is coming every Friday, and then you could go to the company credit union and take out a loan if things get a little hard, versus music industry where it's like, yes, money, pour on me, pour on, it's gone.
And then it just stops. It goes through my open pocket.
So that it was an adjustment. There was nothing glamorous about coming home after that first tour.
So financially, what would you have done different with that first run? Like, how do you
not put rims on my truck?
Okay,
not buy Movado watches, not shut down the 40/40 for a private birthday party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, you learn.
Yeah.
Hey, baby, in New York, man, there's so many things you want to do when you finally make 2 nickels together in this town. So I can't.
Yeah, that's I was making it rain at first tour.
I hear you. So that's the truth.
Yeah, so I had to learn that.
I mean, hey, we all do. If you out on the road, you get caught up
Right.
at some point.
Yeah.
You be out here.
Yes.
You be out in a foreign country with $10 to you. And they be
Right.
You be
It's
out-
like the world, but you got to look like $1
but
million.
you gotta look like you roll. It's all
The
good.
irony.
The irony.
Yes.
The irony.
Yes.
So true. So
Mm-hmm.
so that first year with her, you learn a bunch.
Yes.
But you keep going. You get another call 9 months later. You're like,
Yep.
okay, let's do it again.
Time to go. Yeah. So at that point, by the time I got called for the second tour, like I said, my ex-husband and I had kind of made a decision about the marriage. So it wasn't a sad breakup at all. It was kind of like, we're friends. We were friends before. Let's just be friends again.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people hold on too long and then you don't have the friendship.
Uh-huh.
You know, so that was kind of settled. I had gotten over my grieving process with my loved ones that had transitioned. And this time I'm like, okay, I want to go out on this tour with the intention of leveling up. So we started like with a promo tour because that's when Single Ladies came out. And yeah, so we had the promo for that, and that led to the which tour was that? The I Am Sasha Fierce tour.
Oof, yeah.
Yes. Oh God, that tour was amazing. Then we went everywhere but Antarctica. We went everywhere. We went right.
So
and
how
if she
long
could
was
have gotten
that?
there, she would have
did it.
Right. So we started rehearsals, I believe, in August of 2008. And we went until 2010. So about a year and a half.
Non-stop.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we would have breaks, but I mean, this is Beyonce. So we'd have like a week break here and there. And then, I mean, I'll put it this way. In between 2008 and 2010, maybe I spent a total of a month home. Maybe.
Ooh.
Wow.
Maybe. I was gone.
But I mean, she was on such a
like
that was just the beginning of
that was the
the
climb.
takeoff.
Yeah, that was the climb. And then the thing that I have since I started working with her, and the thing that I noticed not only from my experiences as a background vocalist, but even with other background vocalists. From the very beginning, she was like, yes, the mamas, go, y'all. Like, she pushed us out. And it was like, we were background singers, but we weren't background. We weren't in the background at all. We had dance routines. We had whole sets. There were times where she'd leave the stage and it's like, okay, that's on y'all. Keep the crowd going. So I always said that it was literally like artist boot camp. Because through her platform, she gave all of us, and the singers and the musicians as well, like everybody had solos. Everybody had a moment where, at least for those few minutes, you could feel like I'm the artist on this stage. Like you could envision yourself in that place. And on the second tour, I feel like that was probably for the mamas. That was probably our one of our proudest tours because we had such a large part of the show and like our costuming and like she just really gave us a platform to kind of get her audience to know us. And in the process of that, it was a love-hate because when we first started, people were so cruel to us. Oh my God. People were horrible to us. Because the one thing that Beyonce and Kim Burse, I have to give her credit for that too. The music industry is, but even more so I feel then, was so image driven. And you had to fit a stereotype there was a little box that you had to fit in, and if you didn't fit in that box, you didn't book the big gigs. And Beyonce kind of took the chance. She went like, no, I'm gonna get the big background singers and I'm gonna push them out to the front. And so her heart was pure, Kim's heart was pure, but Twitter wasn't. So we'd get off of the show and it's like, and then we did have these horrible wigs and these horrible dresses. That part I didn't like. But we get on Twitter and it's like, oh, look at the mamas, or those must be Miss Tina's friends. You know, these old ladies up here, and they look like the refrigerators. Those must be the security guards. Like, people were horrible. And I remember one day we had I don't know why we just binged on Twitter comments, but we binged on Twitter comments, and somehow she got word of it. And she said, and I remember her saying, she was like, y'all, have y'all ever looked at what they say about me on there?
Yeah.
She was like, don't read that stuff.
Yeah.
She was like, don't read it. Like, don't even pay attention to it. And I mean, I couldn't at first. I just, I was a glutton for punishment. So I just do it and get mad. And I still have some of them screenshot and saved. But over time, it helped me develop tough skin. But by the second, so that was the first tour. By the second tour, because they loved her and we were associated with her, they loved us. Yeah. So then they went from being our biggest critics to our biggest defenders. So then when someone else would say, yeah, and then these three, large girls, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, those are the mamas. And we,
Okay.
So then we kind of had a little army behind us or whatever. And so second tour, I feel like that second tour allowed all of us individually as artists and musicians and collectively kind of allowed us to come into our own. And that's when you started to feel the transition of, okay, no, she's not like, sorry, everybody else, but no, she's not like everybody else. She's different. And we're blessed. And I used to say this, I still say this. I'm like, there are 7 billion people in the world. And somehow I got picked to do this at this time and in this, and I've never taken that for granted,
Yeah.
And so that second tour, I just wanted to, now that I didn't have, and I don't want to paint it like this because not that it was a distraction, but of course, because it was my first tour, I had so many worries. Mm-hmm. The second tour, I didn't have those worries. I knew how to navigate things. So I spent that second tour focused on appreciating and living in the moment. Yeah. So, that tour, it wasn't about seeing how much I could drink and get drunk and stuff like that. It was about, okay, how can I use my platform to achieve my ultimate goals? Because it wasn't, I love being a background vocalist to this day, but I'd be lying to you if I said that was my goal. You know what I mean? It's one of the desired stops on the path to my goal. And so that's when I kind of started to focus on that, even while I was on the tour, so that by the time I got off the tour, I was able to start releasing my own stuff. Yeah. Yep.
So let's get into that.
Yes.
And when did you meet your now husband?
Yes.
Quiz. Who is our guest 2 episodes ago.
Yes.
Yep.
So I met Quiz actually on the very first tour. We
Right?
did that entire tour and pretty much paid, he was just a guy in the crew. One of the black guys in the crew. That was all I really knew for most of the tour. And then ironically, one time when my ex-husband came out to visit me on tour, Quiz was the person he kind of hung out with. Yeah, because he was where Quiz was working, because he was the audio programmer. That was the space where, okay, you can watch the show, but you're by somebody that can kind of tell you where to go. So I kind of first found out about Quiz, which sounds so weird, but they're cool now, so it's okay.
Through your husband.
But yeah.
your ex-husband.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Oops.
To your new husband.
They weren't friends. It was just,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of when I became aware of who he was and what he did on tour. And then later on, there was another friend of mine, Caddy, the other one that was a mom. She said, have you ever talked to Quiz or whatever? And I'm like, no. I was like, I think, Jeff talked to him and mentioned something about him, but I don't really know him. And she said, y'all need to talk. Y'all even she said we had a lot of the same colloquialisms, and we said a lot of things alike and thought a lot of things. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
That's true.
And so,
I can see that.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So towards the end of the tour, it was literally the last leg of that first tour. And for some reason, the girl who was the lead background vocalist then, Montina, I think she was sick that day. And we were in a rehearsal. And so I had to like sub, because we all operate as stand-ins sometimes for B if B's not there. And normally Montina would do that. But this particular day, Montina wasn't there. So they asked me to do it. And when I did it, I remember Quiz was like, you know, I saw him and then he came like after we broke and was like, I didn't know you could sing like that, because you don't get to showcase your voice in that capacity. At least I don't do that. I know I'm here as a background vocalist. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not here to showboat. And so he was like, I didn't know you could sing like that. And then, you know, that's kind of how we started talking. And literally for the first 4 years of our, I'd say, friendship, really, it was more so we developed a music partnership. So it was like, oh, well, when we get back home into New York, hey, let's do some music and stuff like that. And that's literally how it started. And then probably by the second tour, we both were like, okay, when we get off this tour, we really want to work together and see if we could put a project, you know, out like that. So I met him the first tour, but I'd say it probably wasn't until 2009, the second tour, that I really, really started to get to know him. And again, it was musically at first, and then
nice, because it was like 2011 when I met you guys.
Yes,
yeah, 2011. Yeah,
we were couple about it.
Y'all were working on your stuff when I met and came into the
that Focusrite video came out. Focusrite video came out the same.
Oh yeah, that was we did. Yeah, we saw the Focusrite video. And I was like, oh. Okay. And so that was when I met all of you.
Yes.
Kim Burst, Quiz, you, and da-da-da. So that gets us to 2012. So in these last few years, what's been life like?
So, since kind of then in 2000, I actually released my first EP, which was Nemesis, in 2010. It was literally fresh off of the Sasha Fierce tour. And then at the time, I was still, you know, I was an independent artist and I was still kind of learning the ropes. Thankfully, I had like such a supportive team around me. So from Beyonce's team to kind of just people that I had met in the industry, they all just kind of pitched in here, hey, here's some clothes and here's this and here's, they kind of helped me pull together to, you know, do that. But of course, as an indie artist, I was still trying to learn my way and get my footing. So I did my first video in 2010. Then I didn't do my second one until 2011, like a year and a half later, technically. And the second song I released was Anytime. And by then, I had kind of started to learn, you know, the ropes for that. So overall, I will say, like, I was pleased with the response that I got from the first EP, given the resources that I had and the, you know, and of course the fact that I really did it in a small window of time, because of course, you know, when tour time comes, it's like, okay, drop that, let's go. At least at that phase. So that brought me to 2012. In 2012, that was kind of a, she didn't really tour that year because she had just had her daughter.
The first one. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. She had just had her first daughter, Blue. So, we did do, I think in May of that year, we did Back to Business. But other than that, it was kind of a year for me to assess what I wanted from my career. And the first EP that I put out, I will say, I found myself trying to do what I thought people expected from me. So it was like, okay, well, you sing with Beyonce. People expect you to have music that sounds like Beyonce. So try to do something that sounds like Beyonce. And honestly, Nemesis, what many people don't know, when I wrote Nemesis, I really wrote it for her. As you know, hoping to pitch it to her. I never got the opportunity to pitch it, but I wrote it to pitch it to her. And then Quiz was like, hey, why don't you use it for yourself? And I remember at the time, I'm like, oh my God, like it's so, like, B can say these words because she's actually done this stuff. I haven't done this because I thought it was so like braggadocious and sassy. I mean, earned. There were no lies in it, but it was like, that song had a level of confidence that I didn't have yet. And so it wasn't a song that I was particularly comfortable with at first. But, and I literally had to grow into it. Like, I feel like I finally grew into it this year.
Okay.
What is that? 7, 8, 9 years later? Yeah. But most of that EP, I will say, I'm super proud of it because it was my first work that I actually put out. But after I did that, and once we got to like 2012, and honestly since then in this time I've kind of allowed myself to say, okay, now who are you and what do you want to put out? And I had to accept the fact that, number one, just because you like a genre doesn't mean that's what you're supposed to do. Like, you may enjoy it, but because I mean, like, I love hip hop, but I sound hilarious. I sound like somebody with pleated pants trying to do, you know what I mean? So
trying to rap a bar.
Right, like, that's not me. And I had to learn that. I only learned that after putting out a project. And knowing, because one of the things that I have learned, particularly as an independent artist, you have to be your biggest fan. And you can't be shy about it. So you need to be able to get up there and say, hey, Nemesis, every day, come on, get it. Hey, it's me again, listen, get it. I couldn't do that. One of the reasons I couldn't do that, like I said, is because I didn't write the song for myself. But the other reason was because deep down, I knew that wasn't me. I knew that it wasn't me. And that's when, you know, after that, I learned, okay, make music that you can brag about. If you don't feel like you can brag about it, if you can't be your biggest fan, how do you expect anybody else to be? You know? And so pretty much from 2012 until now, I've been functioning very much as an independent artist. I will say I've had quite a few hiccups along that journey. Many of those, like, for example, in 2013, we toured with Beyoncé on the Miss Carter tour. So I did no music that year. In 2014, we did the On the Run, the first tour. So I did no music that year. In January of 2015, I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. I did no music that year. And that was definitely a defining moment, not just in my career, but that was a life defining moment. Because when I was first diagnosed, I had actually been getting sick on tour. Had missed a couple of shows and everything. And so when I came home, it was like, okay, let me get a quality checkup, see what's going on and all of that. And I was having like these chest pains. So I went looking for my gallbladder. They were trying to find my gallbladder to figure out if it needed to come out. And in the process of testing for that, that's when they found out, number one, that I had sarcoidosis, which I had never known, which is an autoimmune disease. And then following that, doing more testing, they found a tumor in my esophagus that they originally thought was related to the sarcoidosis. So it was no real red flag. It was just like, oh, it's there. It might be annoying. We might take it out. We might not, whatever. But then over the course of testing, they noticed, okay, wait, no, this is in the lymph node too. And just after the process, they're like, okay, no, this is actually cancer. And so originally, they were talking about doing, I was going to have to get a tracheotomy, and I wasn't going to be able to sing anymore. And like literally, the doctor just sat me down. He had to meet with like a board of 26 surgeons to figure out the proper way to handle it and approach it. And then they thought at one point they'd have to do an esophagectomy, which is basically they remove your esophagus, take the top of your stomach, connect it to the base of your, like to the beginning of your esophagus, and it goes there. So it would have just pretty much killed my singing career. And it was funny because I will say, as an artist prior to that, I had gotten complacent. So I was saying, you know what, like, I'm at B and it's stable and I enjoy it and I get to travel the world and I make good money. I don't need a solo career. Like, I don't need to do that. And I had pretty much kind of dismissed pursuing my own path until somebody told me I could.
Said, hold on, hey.
Right. Then when it was like, oh, you don't want to do that anymore? Okay. Then it was like, oh, no, wait, you know. And so I had surgery in March of 2015. And then thankfully they were able to get enough of the tumors. I originally was in New Jersey, meeting with doctors in New Jersey. It got so out of control. They're like, no, we need to refer you to a specialist that's seen this. The type of cancer that I had, only 21 people in the United States had that form.
21.
Yes, 21. And there was supposedly like an 18% survival rate. So 5-year survival rate. So that's what I was looking at. And then prior to that, literally months prior to that, a friend of ours on tour, Yashra, had died from esophageal cancer. So it was a little too, bleak for me. And so, like I said, at first they were like, oh, you're going to have to do the radiation and that's going to kill your voice. So don't do that. And I remember the doctor saying, like, listen, no disrespect. I'm trying to save your life. I'm not really concerned about your voice. And I had to accept that. So I went into surgery in March. Originally, they were trying to do it laparoscopically to, minimally invasive, to remove the tumor. They went in and found 3 tumors. And so when they went in and found 3 tumors, they had to come back out and tell my family, sorry, we have to go all in. It was more than we thought. And at the time, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to save my esophagus. But thanks to Sloan Kettering and Dr. Baines at Sloan Kettering, I had a fragment of an esophagus, but he left it. And they literally had to use mesh to reform it. And so after that, he was able to get enough of it because what they wanted to do was get enough of it, and then he wanted to wait about 3 months to see if my own body could kind of do the rest. If not, then I would have had to do either chemotherapy or radiation. My body did the rest. And so, so when I went back in June for the checkup, all was well. Nothing had grown back. It seemed that everything was gone. And literally, which I've grown to love this date because my surgery was on March 4th. And I felt that was also like a call to action to March 4th, so to speak. And so literally March 4th of 2020 will be my 5 years. And needless to say, I'm not, I'm one of the 18%, So, yes. So,
that's what I'm saying.
No excuses.
Right into homecoming and everything. You were right there. Legendary moves.
Yes. So, following that, like literally 2015, I spent that year, shortly after that, I got engaged. That made Quiz wake up. See what he had. So I got married in 2015. Yeah. We started the Formation Tour in 2016. Ooh. I got married in 2016. We had time off in 2017, and then came homecoming. So that was oh God, that was amazing. That was probably one of the most amazing experiences in my career for many reasons.
Okay.
So they started rehearsals for homecoming actually at the end of 2017, but I didn't come in until 2018. And so when I came in, they had decided to make some shifts in personnel across the board. So they swapped out some of the musicians and they swapped out some of the background vocalists. And I was the only one of the original background vocalists that was left. So that was rough for me at first because Montina and Chrissy were not only like my colleagues, they were like my sisters. And they were like my big sisters. Like, so much of what I learned about being a background vocalist that I hadn't learned from Melanie and other experiences, I spent with them, and you spent so much time with them, their family. So, so they had moved, they had also moved on. Like Montina's son was getting ready to go to college. She was working on her album. So she had kind of made a shift. Chrissy's mom was sick, so she was dealing with that. So they were dealing with life. And it kind of left me feeling like, okay, should I go or should I? I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I got the phone call to come there. And originally I was coming because they said, we're doing a different format for this show. Like, this is a special show. And so we'll be using a choir. And they said, would you be interested in being the assistant vocal arranger? And I'm like, okay, what's that? And so they said, well, basically you would have to train and prepare the choir and stuff and the arrangements for the choir for the show. So I'm like, okay. So I originally went just to be the assistant vocal arranger, not necessarily to participate in homecoming, because I'm just keep it real. When I got there and saw some of that choreography, so I'm like, I don't do that. I've passed that season of life. Y'all have at it, kid. So
yes.
So, but like she always does, when I got there, and I remember, shortly after I got there, I was there and I was working with the choir, and B was basically like, Tiff, why aren't you up? Get up there. Like, why aren't you up there? And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh my God. 2 weeks in, I had to go to urgent care to get cortisone shots in my knees. I had to get my knees wrapped and all of that. But it was it was divine order, because I remember saying in 2017, like, okay, I've now been with Beyoncé for 10 years and I love it. But at the same time, I feel like I'm capable of so much more. And I don't want to just stand behind the mic and sing. Like, I want to get out there. I want to dance. I wanted to do that. And I literally asked God for an opportunity to do more. And boy, did he give me that with homecoming. We were dancing on bleachers, and we did actual choreography, not like play, like, little two-step. No, like, oh God, I'll put it this way. I started rehearsals, I think, in February. Yeah, I think January or February. Homecoming was in April. I lost 50 pounds in rehearsals. Just rehearsing for homecoming.
And how often were the rehearsals?
Every day.
Every day for
single day.
For 4 months.
I think Quiz was saying it was 10 hours a day, no
yes.
days off. No days off.
Even for singers.
Yes. Every day.
Oh my God. Okay, as far as vocal health.
Yeah.
How does...
You rest when you can.
When you can.
Okay. Rest when you can. And then the other thing that she had all of us do during that season, she had a nutritionist come in. And again, she doesn't just give you a fish, she teaches you how to fish. So she had a nutritionist come in and actually teach us about like a vegan lifestyle. And so, and her position was like, because of course she had just had her twins,
yeah.
So she was very much out of shape as we were.
Yeah.
And so her point was, y'all, to pull this off, we got to be in our best condition, in our best selves. So I will say, she challenged all of us to kind of follow the same lifestyle she was following. And that's the thing. She has never been one of those artists that's like, yeah, do that again. Yeah, you sing. She's there before we get there. She leaves after we leave. She works as hard and harder than we do. So it's like, even though you may be there and you may be tired and frustrated and everything, but she's right there with you. So you can't be but so mad.
Oh yeah, because
you know what
like,
I mean?
Yeah, let's do that one more. Do that again.
We're gonna all do it again.
Do it again.
Right. And so I will say, from a vocal health standpoint, we were definitely conditioning at the same time, and then definitely, since I was now kind of in a leadership role, I did have to make sure that my team had what they needed, you know what I mean? So, of course we followed our little vocal regimen, and we had our little warm-ups, and we did those things, and we were all eating healthier. So that helped. And because of the amount of choreography and stuff we were doing, we were working out. So I dare say I was in the best shape ever. Your life. I was in the best shape ever,
Wow.
through that process. So that, oh God, that I love. And then even just doing the actual performances, it was unreal. I mean, I've been blessed to be in front of large audiences a lot. Like we did Glastonbury, so just the amount of people there wasn't so much the shock, but it was literally knowing, like, okay, when I came in here, I had never done a show like this, and then when you told me what you wanted us to do, I couldn't see myself doing this, and here I am doing it. You know what I mean? And so it was, I think, like, that was definitely like a star highlight in my career from that standpoint, because all of us, everybody did something they had never done on that stage. Like, you literally had dancers who were singing. You had musicians who were dancing. You know what I mean? You had everybody kind of stepped into other lanes and got out of their comfort zones and were able to stretch. Yeah. You know what I mean? more than we had. So that, oh God, that was amazing. It was amazing. I look at it now just to kind of like, wow, I did that.
Oh, hey, we were just looking at it.
We were just watching it.
Yeah, I'm like, I did that. It was, oh God, it was amazing. It was.
I mean, you know, yeah.
Like, and I mean, as incredible as the Netflix special is, and it's incredible, it's like, darn, but y'all still don't get how good
it was.
Still don't get it. Yeah, it was, oh God, it was amazing. I felt like I was in college again.
Yeah.
I literally felt like I was in college.
I was about to say, yeah, Morgan State is a HBCU.
Yeah,
so, I mean, you already you knew what she was going for when she said.
Yeah. And then it was like, it was another opportunity for me to kind of bridge some of my personal life experiences with my career. Because it's like, I went to an HBCU. I'm in a sorority. So I've done that. And that's always something that's kind of separate from the music industry. So to see her appreciate that so much that she incorporates it into her art, I'm like, oh God, my whole world is right here. Like, I mean, everything I love is right here. You know what I mean? So that was amazing.
I mean, come on, as a Southerner, that's...
Yes.
I mean, you know,
there's nothing like it.
It was like, oh my goodness. That's the whole point of college, black college football, historically black colleges. I mean, she represented that experience.
Yes.
Just top to bottom. Like,
yes.
How the excitement. It was so authentic.
And that's what I appreciated. It wasn't like, oh, let's watch a couple of videos and try to mimic what they do. It wasn't that. It was like, okay, what band is that? Okay, get them. You know what I mean?
Or what band was that?
They're called the, oh God, I don't want to mess up.
Was that a
Drumline Live.
Oh.
I think they're based out of Atlanta, I believe. Drumline, that was who the Drumline was. And then literally, even like there were 150 of us on that stage. And all of us, well, I won't say all of us, but the majority of us had authentic HBCU experience. So for us, it was just like, we back on the yard, like, you know. But then even for the people who had never had that experience, they were like, so this is what and we could say, no, y'all, this is literally what it was like. Like, even, you know, when we were in rehearsals, it was such a community, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, oh, you go to this like sterile building and you just sit. We were a community for that whole entire period. Yeah, for that whole experience. You know, like, we all stayed near each other. We ate in a cafeteria together. It was like being in college. It really was. Yeah.
Wow. For 4 months or so.
Well, for me, for 4 months. Quiz was probably double that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was in October?
Or
November.
Yeah, he started.
2017 he started. I was like, hold on. I remember thinking, hold on.
Yes.
You sure she's just...
And she, from what I know, she started, I believe, in August of 2017. So you literally, and I mean, and that's the thing that I will say I always appreciate about her.
The twins that year
she had the twins in June, and she started rehearsal in August.
Whew.
I mean,
yes, and so it's literally, and I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, I've taken from her for my career and just life in general, because it's literally like she pushes herself like no one. I know, even sometimes by her own admission, maybe a little too much. You know what I mean? But she spent all of those months rehearsing for what was a
2-hour
show. But that's how important it was.
I mean, it was important.
Right.
I mean, it was that important.
That's how important it was, you know.
I mean, it showed a culture that most people don't even see.
Right.
By the number one pop artist in the world.
Right.
I mean, historically.
Who doesn't have to take that platform. Yeah. Like, she didn't have to.
At all.
Yeah. So that's what I appreciated.
Yes.
You know, as someone who attended, you know, I was able to take myself kind of out of that. And as someone who attended an HBCU, who loved that experience, who wished everyone could kind of get a glimpse of it, I appreciated that she didn't even have that experience directly, but she kind of grew up adjacent to it. And her dad, because her dad actually went to Fisk University around the same time as my mom. Yeah, so it was like, you know, it was something that was adjacent enough, and she was able to pull from the experiences of her family and the people around her to put on, like I said, an authentic production that, you know, it will live infinitely. You know, so Yeah.
The ultimate homecoming experience.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
And you were part of that.
Yes.
Putting together assistant arranger on the choir.
Yeah.
How many person choir?
It was 12 of us.
12.
Yeah, it was 12.
Yeah, I saw a lot. I was like, oh.
Yes. It was 12 of us, yeah.
And writing for that, and
arranging and all of that. Yeah, and we actually had, which was so great, because we had so many like arrangements and stuff, some of which ended up in the final show, some didn't. But someone, it was one day it was the day of the second show, actually. And we were it was before the show, we were like just kind of hanging out in the yard, and we were just singing, and we were singing one of the arrangements that we ended up not doing for the actual show. Yeah. But someone filmed it and posted it on Instagram, and then it ended up going viral. Ended up going viral, and so I was like, oh, so it got heard anyway, So it was just, and it was so great, because then that gave, like, one of the things that was important to me, particularly, and I mean, not to sound like a super old head, but one of the things that was important to me, particularly for that experience, was you had so many, I'll speak from the group I worked with, so many of them who had either never really had a major background gig before, never worked with a major artist before, or anything like that. For so many of them, this was their first experience.
Wow. And
I wanted to make sure that people knew they were a part of it. You know what I mean? Because we were on a stage with 150 people. So to say, hey, you see me? No, I don't. I'm sorry. It's a whole bunch of yellow or a whole bunch of pink. I don't, I don't see that. But I did want to do that, for those that ended up, and I mean, 3 of them ended up touring with me on the Run tour. On the Run 2 tour. That followed. But I did want to make sure that they were all able to, number one, take in the moment, take something from the moment, and I wanted people to know that they were a part of it. You know what I mean? And so the thing that I loved even about the video going viral, when it was like, okay, here's your platform. Like, people can know that you were a part of something iconic. Mm-hmm. So that it was great to share with them. And I mean, we're all still friends and all still cool and all of that. So yeah, that was great. I
mean, expanding the network.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you guys do. And, hey, I'm doing this. You want to try? Oh, okay, let's,
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was great. That was great.
Yeah. So, okay, now we're present day.
Yes.
What's going on?
Okay.
Miss Tiffany.
So now, right now, I've been, for pretty much all of 2019, I've been working on my project.
Yes.
So I've been working on my project, still currently independent, though I have been exploring opportunities or possibilities of aligning with some more major companies, so to speak.
Nice.
And just trying to figure out what's best for me. One of the things that is important to me, particularly at this phase in my career, is I definitely want to be represented authentically and honestly. And to a degree, that's where being an independent artist kind of gets a notch, because I can maintain that as an independent artist. But, just speaking to the elephant in the room, the majors got money. Yeah. So you have to, and resources. So you have to kind of balance that. And I've been kind of working with that. But I'm definitely, I'd say, about 80% of the way towards completion of my album that Quiz is producing.
Nice.
Yes. So I've been, working on that. In addition to that, actually inspired in part by that homecoming experience, I started my own I kind of refer to it as an artist development community or resource, because one of the things that I will say, number one, I have now been operating completely as a background vocalist for 24 years and full-time for 13 years. And I've been blessed to work with the biggest star, you know what I mean, out there.
Yes.
And so through even the homecoming experiences and working with the artists, that showed me that working with the other singers and kind of teaching them, okay, this is what I've experienced. This is what I know. This is the best way to navigate in this camp. This is what you don't do in this camp. This is what you should take with you in all camps that you work with. I enjoyed that, you know? And so I started my own company called Booked and Blessed. Oh. And it's kind of an artist development or artist resource community where I can just kind of share my experiences more formally, because I get tons of messages and DMs and stuff daily, like, how do I become a background vocalist, or how do I audition, or where do I go, or how do I release my own music? And I did want to create a platform where I could do that on a broader, you know, as opposed to just
scale.
One-on-one.
Right,
as opposed to one-on-one, you can't get to everybody. So I've started creating that. It is absolutely in its infant stage or whatever, but can be visited, bookedandblessed.com. So I've been focusing on that, like I said, as well as
so
my
is
own.
It like a web?
Like
how do you
so it's basically at present it's primarily blog based. Ultimately, it will expand to also include other resources, like whether it's ebooks or classes, master classes, webinars, things of that nature.
Nice.
Because I will say I have a lot of information, and I've done, like I said, I've helped other people, you know, whether they were in the beginning of their career or even sometimes even with some of my peers. Like I'll get called by friends and it's like, okay, so I'm on this tour and I'm doing this and they asked me to do this. What do you think? You know, and one of my other passions, which I've started the process of, but I haven't completed, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. Always. Always.
What
passion. Yes.
Our business partner in this is a lawyer.
Yes. Yeah. And so I actually started studying for the LSAT in 2016, and then I started touring and had to pause that. So I've also restarted that. Yeah, we started that this year, hoping to take it next year, because that is a goal for mine. I haven't been more aggressive with it only because the thing that I haven't mastered is how I fit it into my career. In doing the research that I've done, and even some of the universities or schools that law schools I'd want to attend, I couldn't tour. I could not tour and be in law school. Yeah. So I definitely have to find that balance. To make sure, because again, when I commit to something, I commit. So
the way to go.
It's even some ways to not have to go to school. You can like through another lawyer, you can get it's some other way, you know,
and even
but that takes time. But either way, you got to be there,
right? And so because I definitely wanted to pursue specifically entertainment law. One of the other so that was kind of another inspiration for Booked and Blessed, because I figured, okay, this is a way for me to informally begin the process of giving out that advice that I've learned through experience, you know, and in the platforms, you know, so that hopefully it can evolve as I evolved, you know. So it's pretty much, like I said, it's blog based now, and I'm just kind of giving information, but I definitely have already in my business planning, in the work behind the scenes, avenue, so that I can continue to kind of give that consultation and advice to people on a smaller basis, even a one-on-one basis, you know, as needed. But that is kind of my baby now, in addition to my career. But absolutely, positively, and probably for the first time, my own solo artist career is what I would consider my priority right now. So, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So when is the release date?
Yes.
Oh, wow, pressure.
With 2020.
We only put pressure.
I've had a couple of release dates. I actually did my first show in May, this past May. The first show I had ever done, which is shocking
as
to me.
As a solo?
Yes.
What?
Did you have a band?
First one.
Where did you?
The city,
at Rockwood Music Hall. It can be seen on my website, TiffanyMonique.com.
Yes.
But I did my first show, and then it was funny because I was planning it. I'm like, why haven't I done a show? I don't have an answer for that. But I did my first show because I wanted to make sure, like, okay, do you really want to do this? And I was nervous planning it and getting up there, and then as soon as I got there, it was like, okay,
yeah,
you know,
back on stage.
yeah, you know. So that solidified for me that I definitely want to do it. And then originally I was like, oh, well, I'm going to put out a project in August. And then August became September. And then September became 2020. So now we're in 2020. But I will say very intentional, only because one of the things that, just speaking honestly and transparently, one of the things that I do find a need for me to do is allow time for people to get to know Tiffany Monique, the artist. Plenty of people know Tiffany, the background vocalist, but they don't know Tiffany, the artist. So it's kind of like even back in 2007 when Quiz heard me sing that first time, I was like, oh, I didn't know you could, that was even the response that I got by many after my show. And which is amazing because prior to going to college, that's what I was known for. I wasn't pursuing a music career, but I sang everywhere. I sang everywhere. And then somehow over the course of performing as a background vocalist, I got comfortable back there. So, I got comfortable back there. And so the reason why even I kept pushing the date is because I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that when I do this, I am fully committed to it and kind of, that I'm artistically true, because this year has been a transitional year for me as an artist, even I'd say. Because again, when you work so closely with someone and you only sing their music and you only perform their shows, that's how I saw myself. And I had to take a step back, which is what I've really focused on this year, to take a step back and say, okay, is that who you are? Is that who you are? And if that's not who you are, figure out who you are and live in that. So that, I had to create the separation between background vocalists and artists. And so I think I've done that now. I think I have a better understanding of who I am as an artist versus who I am as a background vocalist, and they are far different, far more different than I originally thought. Yeah, far more. Like I don't think I'm necessarily a stadium. I'm kind of like BB Kings, and small and kick my shoes off, and So I had to figure out who she was, who Tiffany Monique was.
And what genre are you what do you feel comfortable? What is Tiffany Monique?
Right, absolutely R&B, soul. But I'm definitely someone who I always want purpose and meaning and intention in my music. I don't want anything that I'm 60 years old and I'm embarrassed to sing or can't sing. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? That's not what I want. I want a lifelong career. And so I had to figure out what that meant and that meant that as much as I may like what I hear on the radio, I'm not going to be listening to that in 2 years. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. And so I had to do that. And I will say, like, particularly this year, there have been so many other artists that have come out that have even helped me be comfortable with being that artist like her. You know what I mean? And people like that are so authentic to what they do. And they're not necessarily doing it for the fame. They're not worried about their outfits. They're not worried about trends. They're making timeless music. And that's truly what I, that's truly what I...
Good music. Okay, right. So that's your genre.
That's good music.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, so and like I said, I have plenty of releases that I put out. Like I did the Nemesis EP. I also have 2 songs on Quiz's project, The Blacklight Chronicles. Yep. After Amen and Pushing On. And I will say, that's me. Like the music that I did on that project is I really felt like that's me. Okay. And so that's when I said, okay, I need to follow this lane, because I listened to that and I can look at events going on and in society and in life, and I can go and listen to that and see, I said that in that song, and now it's happening. That's what resonates with me. Yeah, that's what resonates with me. So without being corny and preachy, and I don't want to be one of those per se. Yeah. I want it to be enjoyable. I want you to dance. I want you to have fun, but I want you to leave with something. Yes, So that's my focus. And so 2020.
Okay.
2020, now clear vision, and I'm going to have it out. It's going to be clear.
Tiffany Monique, being very clear. What would be the name of the album? Has it been? Or you just kind of still in working titles?
I actually had a title, and I am definitely this is not to be dark, but I had a title for my project because, like I said, I've had an album in progress for years. And originally, the title of my album was going to be Code Blue. And originally it was going to be Code Blue for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was kind of loosely based on The Matrix. It was loosely based on kind of a period I was going through originally when I wrote it. Like when I started writing some of the songs, because there's a few songs on the project now that I wrote 10 years ago. You know what I mean? But then I just only now or only recently recorded it and things like that, you know. And so I did that, and that was before my diagnosis. And then when I got that diagnosis and went through all of that, I was like, oh, no, thoughts become things. I need to change that. So, So I changed it. So I haven't figured out what it's going to be yet. Okay. But I do have, which I don't want to say too much, but I do have a very intentional and I feel unique approach for how I want to release it. I don't want to say too much too soon.
Okay,
I need to see it through. But
you'll come back here.
I will.
We'll have you back on.
I absolutely will. But I definitely have. I know exactly how I know exactly how I want to roll it out, and exactly how I want the message that I kind of want to send and how I do it. So really, the biggest thing I'm working on right now is making it happen and trying not to get impatient about that. Because I could release a song I could put a single out tomorrow if I wanted to, but I have such a clear vision of how I want it to be done. So now what I have done.
As the songs roll though.
I was about to say.
We got social media.
Yes. I'm not saying I'm going to
get your TikTok popping.
Right.
Get you a TikTok going. So hey, we in right now.
I definitely have plans to release a couple of singles and songs in that time. But as far as the album is concerned, I know how I want it to be done, and I have to do it. I have to do it that way.
Okay, 2020.
I learned from the best. I have to do it that way.
Shit. You don't even know when she's gonna do it. Like, hey, it's here,
right? And it makes sense.
Drops it. Like, there you go.
Yeah,
and you're gonna love it. You're
right.
I do. You know.
Yeah, she's very intentional with that, and that's one thing I absolutely want to carry into my own artistry and my own own pursuits, to be very intentional and deliberate with it. So, I got some singles coming, but the real thing is coming next year, 2020.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice. All right.
Yes.
Tiffany Monique.
Yes,
Tiffany Monique.
Your story.
Yes.
Inspirational.
Let's go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
coming on the podcast on the Art of Music Tech. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the good stuff.
Yes.
It'll be a couple days, or I don't know. We'll pick this up pretty soon since we went live.
Awesome.
So it's on all the good stuff. Where can they find you again? What are the platforms they can reach out to you?
I'm on Instagram I'm on all the time under Tiffany Monique. I'm also on Facebook, Tiffany Monique Music. I'm on Twitter as Diva Tiff. We're still working on getting Tiffany Monique Music Twitter.
Okay.
And I'm also, you can find out all about me, my music, my background, people I've worked with, what I haven't said here, though I've said a lot here. But
if it's not enough.
We're still going to have you back with this 2020 album.
You. That's right.
Yeah.
But TiffanyMonique.com, and then actually even Booked and Blessed, it's BookedXBlessed.com. Or whatever. So it's booked and blessed, but the and is represented with an X.
Okay.
So I can be found there.
All right. Yes. We'll add those links to the summary a little bit on the upload.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, but thank you so much to our local New Jersey girl in our New Jersey Fort Lee location, the 101 production studio.
Awesome.
We got laced with yet another person from the Beyoncé camp.
Yes.
You guys are all amazing. I've had 4 people from Beyonce's camp on my podcast, and just all of your amazing stories, how you got the gigs, how it came about, and Kim Burse just linking us all together.
She's amazing.
Shout out to her.
Yes.
I mean, she helped in so many ways.
And so many people. Yes.
So many people. Like, if you're going to be in the industry, that's what you want. You want to meet somebody like that, or you want to be that person. You want to link people.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Be the one putting them together.
Right. Yeah.
She always just fits people together. The right people. You're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I met you.
Can I call it a hope dealer?
I know, right? She's a strong hope dealer.
Yes,
it's those southern roots again from Georgia.
That's right.
Well, all we know is faith in the South.
Yeah. That's right.
Again, thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me.
From Dennis.
Hey.
Me, Faye.
Thank you, Tiffany.
At the 101 studio in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Please check us out on Facebook, all of that stuff, Instagram. We're there. Thank you so much for listening.
Watching.
And let's go.
Let's go, guys.
For more information of booking 23DB Productions, visit their website at 23dbproductions.com. Like and follow 23DB Productions at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the latest work.